Hey, welcome to the 24K Life podcast with Derick Gant, your host. I want you to know that the 24K Life is all about you going through the fire to level up your life. And we're here to bring you those people that can help you crack that code, your specific code to your personal success. Now, we have someone with more experience than me. I know you're shocked. I know you're surprised. She has over 30 decades. I have over 30 decades, but she spent her 30 decades in Fortune 500 companies, not just entrepreneurship. And she is hell bent on bringing those experiences, those insights to you, to us, to share how we can all live a little bit better 24K life. With that, I want to introduce you to Cassandra Mayo. Hi, Cassandra.
Hi there, Derick. How are you?
I am wonderful. I am happy. I am healthy. You know, the older I get, the more I judge how I'm doing by my health. You know, it used to be by my wealth. Now it's by my health. After seeing so many people struggle with their health, even if they had wealth, you reassess a little bit. But I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I am doing fabulous today. Today is a great day. I woke up this morning, and that means that my work is not done, and I have a lot more to do.
I love it. My work is not done because he woke me up.
Yeah.
Started me on my way. Well, listen, we are excited. Let me tell the people who you are.
Okay.
So Cassandra is the author of Is Your Way in Your Way?
Yeah.
What? How many times are we been in our own way? We're going to get into that, but she's the author of the book, Is Your Way in Your Way? She is a speaker, a mentor with over 30 years of experience leading, training, and coaching professional men and women towards their primary career goals. Now, as I mentioned, she's a former vice president of a global Fortune 500 company, and she often found herself working as the first and only African-American. How many times does that happen in professional African-Americans' lives? First in the classroom, first to college, the only one in the classroom, the first one in the company, the only one in your division, but yet you thrive, right?
Yeah. Persevered.
Amen and amen. So, you know, I wanted you wrote something in your content that really kind of drew me in. I mean, I put it in bold red, so it really drew me in.
Okay.
And you stated that you're committed to a journey of confronting habits and behaviors that kept me from living a happy and healthy life outside of work. That sounds like everybody. That sounds like most people that aren't really doing their work. And when I say their work, I mean their personal journey work, cracking their code to their own personal happiness in totality. But that jumped out at me because, you know, you had a successful career, you know, you're a beautiful woman, you are, you know, I mean, you present like amazingly. So you're like, okay, what was going on and what were you missing? That's my first question right out the gate. I know it's a big question out the gate, but that's what I want to know.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting. There's this scripture that says, when I was a child, I understood as a child, I spoke as a child, but then when I became an adult, I put childish things away. And there was a time when I'm like, I wish I didn't put so many childish things away. And what I mean by that is, as a child, I was curious, I was courageous. There was nothing that I could not do. The sky was not even the limit for me. It was like a fire in my belly. I was just so pumped up about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, and as I became an adult, I realized that I was successful, but there was so many let me just call it life. Life got in the way. Mm-hmm. So because life got in my way, there was certain obstacles. For example, all of a sudden I started having esteem battles. Then I started having racial inequality that I was confronted with. I also had burnout, self-sabotage, imposter syndrome. And I was so caught up into my head, I realized that I was focused so much on doing a great job that I definitely kind of missed out on having a well-balanced life. You
Mhm.
know, my friends, my family, because I thought and felt that I had to work harder because I had to prove myself being the first African American female in all of my positions. So that's what happened there. I was just engrossed in this corporate thing, forgetting that there's more to life than the corporate thing. And I felt that I just missed out on so many things.
Okay, so we got to pause there. We got to pause because you said so
Um,
much. So what are you like? Not what? When did this start? And this all didn't happen at the same time. So you're in your career. You spent over 30 years in your career. When did this? And I'm not talking about the work-life balance because that's kind
right.
of the summary of what you said at certain points. But before you got to the work-life balance problem, you mentioned some other bigger problems. You
Yeah.
talked about self-esteem. When did you have an issue with your self-esteem? Was it in the beginning? Did it happen after you were there and you got a new job title and this imposter syndrome? When did this stuff pop off?
Great question. It was like a process. And what I mean by that, although I can think of my first job opportunity that was in Birmingham, Alabama. And hey, of course, I was reluctant about going to Birmingham only because of all that I've heard, all that has happened, inequality, discrimination. But when I went there, I something happened to me that had me to pause. I was looking for a place to live, and the places that I liked, they always said they had nothing available. Number one. And so therefore, people were showing me other places that I wouldn't even want my animal to live in.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember going back to work and telling my boss that there was a location that I really liked, an apartment building that I really liked. And it appeared that everywhere I'd go that I liked, nothing was available. So he asked me for the addresses. And the next day, I came to work, got a phone call from a place that I wanted to live in. And they said, "Oh, we just got something available." To find out, when I did go to the place, they had a brand new section that had so many vacancies. And when I thought about that and I was like, didn't put a lot of thought in it, but just based on life experiences, things somewhat resonated with me and had me to pause. So that was one example.
Well, wait a
And
minute. Let's stick with that story, though.
yeah,
So we have to assume the manager was not of African American persuasion,
absolutely not.
but he was an advocate and made the call. He obviously jumped in somebody's hind parts to make sure that you got in that building.
That's correct.
So was he really an ally, an advocate for you, or was that a one-time thing? How was that relationship, if you will?
He was an ally.
Okay.
I would say, and thinking back on it, Derick, he was a racist too.
Well, see, that's my question. I'm
Yeah.
like trying to figure out, okay, well,
Yeah.
given the circumstances and given the location of where you are, I'm trying to figure out what motivated him to make sure you had great accommodations. Was it
Right.
corporate
Well,
self-interest?
Well, actually, because I worked for him, I worked for his organization, and he wanted to make sure that what I did was in my best interest and his best interest.
Yes.
So, in order to make me at peace, I relocated from Virginia all the way to Birmingham, first time I've left home. And he just wanted to make sure I was accommodated. And he could tell just by my work ethic that I was going to make a difference in his organization. So
Right.
I was going to make him look good. So he wanted to look after me.
I get it. That's what I kind of was leading towards. I mean, I had to assume that, but I can't assume on a podcast. We got to ask. We got to ask the hard questions. So
That's right. That's right.
So what about this, the self-esteem or because I don't know, that didn't sound, maybe it was a self-esteem and a racial thing. Well, we know it was a racial thing, but the question really is about your self-esteem. You've been the first, you've been tenacious, you've been disciplined, you've been diligent, you've gone through school, you've got this great job. Was it because you were the first that you felt like maybe your self-esteem wasn't where it was supposed to be, or were you ready to go? Because see, in my journey, I showed up like, I'm I'm the man, let's go.
Right.
And I had to get boxed around a little bit,
Yeah.
going, okay, yep, you're just another dude, bro.
Yeah.
You are not the man. And if you were the man, you're not the man here. So my self-esteem took a couple chinks after I was in the organization and figured out that no matter how great I did, they were still pegging me at a certain spot.
Yeah.
But what about you? What did you start with self-esteem, or did they wear you down and take it away?
Yeah, it was a wear down. And
Okay.
let me give you an example. I had two things that was going for me, or some people may say against me. Not only was I the first African American female, but I was also in a male environment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Male-dominated environment.
Oh, absolutely. And I remember myself being in the boardroom or being in meetings. The only one, just imagine, the only female, the only African American, and everyone else was white males. And when a question was asked or you had an opinion about something, you would voice your opinion. And once you had voiced your opinion, they would look at you and they would somewhat ignore you. And then somebody else would say the same thing I said, but said it differently. And things like that started wearing me down. And that's where the imposter came up. Maybe I'm not fit out for this.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe I started thinking like, did I not articulate correctly? Or am I too Black? Or am I not like dressed right? You had a certain, like in the corporate, you wore suits, you wore dark colors. Okay. I'm a bright girl, as you can see.
Right.
All right. So I knew I had the savvy to know when not to wear bright, but I also knew when to be suited up in the corporate style.
Right.
And then every now and then somebody would say, your fingernail polish is too loud. And, and when I reflect back on all the things that were said and done for me, I said, wow, I could have sued them based on all the things they had said to me, how they presented to me, things that were said around me. But I didn't go there, because there were times too, I was very naive. And I believe I was naive for a reason, because if I was not, I would not have moved. I would not have been promoted like I had been.
So that's the next question. Great conversation. And I think it's going to be so helpful as we get closer to the positive sides of these conversations. But how did you get promoted with all of that being ignored and being, you're already, you already stand out. And I think that what they were saying is that you already stand out. Let's not stand out anymore with your colors and your fingernails and your comments, even though they were amazing. And people were stealing your ideas, which we know, our stuff is always confiscated and reused. But in any event, how did you get promoted? And how long did it take for you to feel like, hey, did you ever get to the point where I'm at where I deserve to be as a senior VP at this company, or no?
Well, let me tell you another story. I have so many of them now. This is interesting. I was promoted, or what I would say, I was slated for a position because of affirmative action. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you why I know this. I was interviewed to be, which I didn't know, to be a general manager of a hotel. And I was super excited about it because I've never been a GM of a hotel. I've managed, but to be a general manager, didn't even think about my race or anything.
Right.
And so one night about 10 p.m., I received a phone call from the head of human resources for this particular hotel division. And he offered me the opportunity, and I was like, wow, I was so super excited. I'm like, and I thought it was odd somebody would call me at 10 p.m. at night. Who knows how I would answer the telephone. I mean, this was nighttime. And he told me who he was, and he was calling to offer me the job. And I said, oh, he said, well, I said, oh yeah, thank you, I accept. And the first thing he said is, thank God I've met my quota.
Oh God.
He said, and I was like,
what?
Naive. And I was like, okay. And then that's when I pivoted mentally and realized that I said, I'm gonna have to prove something to these guys. It's like, met my quota. What does that really mean? Young, still a young exec, and to find out I was the first African American female, and he was super excited that whether I was qualified or
Qualified or not.
whatever, his
Right.
thing was I needed to hire somebody that's Black.
Mm. Wow. And he got double dipped because Black female. So he's like really on his game.
Oh, he was on high. He
Yeah.
was high. So
Well,
things like that, I think, had so much to do with my life experiences. So then I started thinking, well, am I not good enough? You know what? And then I felt I had to prove it, but thank God I was phenomenal
I love it.
phenomenal and paved the way for so many.
Awesome. That's a blessing. So did you retire, or did you decide to leave corporate America to go on this journey, writing your book and things, or did you retire and then do it, or did you decide to transition somewhere in the midst of your career?
Well, I think most of us, in our careers sometimes wonder, I'm thinking there were other things that I wanted to do, but I was comfortable because I got paid every other week.
Right.
So I was comfortable, but I always wanted to write this book, and I always wanted to speak, I always wanted to do this. And even though I had that experience in my jobs and my roles, but I wanted to kind of do something different. But yet in my position and just me in general, as a child, I always set goals. And I had this goal that I wanted to retire at the age of 55.
Okay.
That was my goal. Like when I was 20, I wanted to make this amount of money. When I was 30, I wanted to do this. When I was 50, always set those goals. And then as I was reaching the age of 55, I thought about, oh my gosh, I think I can do this. I have positioned myself, invested well, that I was able to do that and still live like I had been living.
Excellent.
And so things on the job, corporate, there were certain things that were going on that I didn't like. That was against my values. I know being in a position that I was, how they treated people. You kind of teach people how to treat you. But then when you become, the first or African American, another ethnicity, you have to have what I call politicking. And
Right.
that's politics in everything. And there were times when I didn't want to have to do that. I wanted to be myself. And
Right.
I felt that I could not be myself. I started getting in my way of being the person that I was created to be. And I became tired of it. And that's when I realized, hey, I'm almost 55. I can retire.
Right.
And that's what happened.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about the book. What's inside the book?
Well, the book is actually my story. It's actually a book for women, and I've had men to be very upset with me because they've read the book and says there's so much in that book that I could use. So why would you put it for women, a self-discovery guide for women on how to restore yourself, learn from experience, and find your true self again? And it all started when I traveled. What I didn't say, even in my job, I probably traveled 90% of the time.
Oh, wow.
On an airplane now. I mean, not driving. I just
Right.
traveled. And there was just so many interesting experiences when you're flying. And I don't have to go into detail. I think the national news can tell you that stuff that's happening now happened then. Okay.
Wow.
And, with delays and cancellations, people angry. I mean, it's like a war zone sometimes at an airport. And while at the airport, and this is something in my book, I kind of talked about what enabled me to get out of my box, get out of my way, and literally do what I believe that I am called to do.
Okay.
The airport was chaotic. They had told, I want to say they lied to the passengers. Once it was mechanical difficulty. The next time it was weather while they weren't here. The next time they needed to change the plane. Then finally they canceled it. and people went crazy.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was like the flight was full. There were people from all walks of life. They weren't frequent travelers like myself who understood the ropes and knew what to do. And that time, for some reason, I just rose from my seat because the flight attendants, the reps at the gate, it just got out of control. It was just like a war zone. So I went over there, I whispered to them about what's really going on. Okay, so the flight's canceled. What hotels are in the area? The proper questions to ask to get the crowd in order.
Right.
I took their microphone.
You did not.
An announcement. And I shared with them what the deal was. The flight was canceled. Now, these are some options. And if anything that I call out and this is what you want, you stand in this line.
You did.
You want to rebook, you stand in this line. In other words, Derick, I took over.
Yes, you
did. I literally took over. And then when I was done, I was embarrassed. Wow. I got out of my way and did something that I would not ordinarily do because it was not my business. That was not my industry. And I sat down and this guy came over and said, what you did was amazing. And all of a sudden I heard something say, if you would only get out of your way, I'm going to do some mighty, mighty things for you. So that started my journey.
I love it. So here's the question, right? This is the question. How can men or women, I know you wrote the book for women, but how can men or women now you had that aha moment, but we all have it at different times, and you prepared well and you had it at the tail end where you were closer to being set at 55 to go. So there's multiple questions here, so take them however you want, and if you forget them, I'll repeat them. Okay. But what would you recommend to people that haven't prepared? Would you or don't have the time? Like they're not near the end. Let's say they're in the middle or so, but they have this desire. They've had their aha moment and they feel stuck. I call it living in quiet desperation. Mm-hmm. So what would you recommend to those people? Number one, and number two, well, I guess it's the same question. Would you recommend they wait? Would you recommend that they find a way now? Because I see your smile. You obviously are elated that you decide you had that aha moment and that you moved on it. But we'll save the other questions for a little bit later. So what about that? What would you recommend to someone in corporate or in a 9-to-5 that hasn't really prepared because they hadn't really thought about it, but they're listening to this and they're going, yeah, I feel what she's saying and I need to do something, but I'm not in a financial position to do it?
Well, first of all, which I didn't mention, is that I'm a woman of faith.
Okay.
And what I did and did more of because of all the experiences that I've had was pray about things. Pray to God to put me in a place that he would want me to be, direct me, surround me with the right people. I would highly recommend you get a mentor, someone that you have admired, have some similarities, has some values such as yourself, and you want to be comfortable with that person and have them to be your mentor. A mentor to me is different than a coach. I think coaches are great. I've been a coach. I'm a mentor now, but the mentor, sometimes they spend more time with you. Mm-hmm. My mentorship can be from 90 days to 6 months. Okay. Just somebody that they can call on. We can talk about, first of all, I need to understand what it is that you want. What does your best life look like? Right. If I want to, I hear people say, well, I want to retire at 55. Why do you want to retire at 55? But when you retire at 55, that doesn't mean you do nothing. Mm-hmm. I mean, what is it that you want to do? So those are the things that, I would ask people, that just questions, probing questions that go get them to think and go through a self-discovery mode about why is it that you want that.
That sounds good. So you're saying, quiet your spirit, ask for guidance, listen for the answer. Most people don't listen for the answer. They ask and they're constantly asking, but not listening. Right. So pray about it, listen for that response. start finding a mentor, someone that can help guide you, that's been there, done that, not just talking about what you could or should do, but get a mentor. So I appreciate that. That sounds like extremely sound and wise advice. So inside the book is your life story. Do you also have tools or ideas? I know you have a companion journal with it. Is that so that people can kind of start lining up their story along the way, or how's your book and companion book work?
Well, the companion book takes you through every chapter in my book. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I say is your childhood is important because it all really starts there. Never underestimate your childhood, how you grew up. And I just have questions that run from first chapter to the 12th chapter. Let's delve into your backstory. Mm-hmm. Your backstory has so much to do with where you are now. And once you get an understanding of why you're like you are, that gives you some revelation. And I'm going to give you an example. A lot of people carry around scars and resentment. They're angry about something or someone that they did in their life. And for me, I had that scar. I resented my parents. And I resented my parents, but I found out by doing so, it would hold me back. I could not move forward when there was so many resentments. Right. I resented, and I'm not ashamed to say this because I have a great story that I will not share here because of the time. But I found out that I grew up as an only child. Okay. And so this little girl comes to me when I was in the first grade to tell me that her mom said that she should not try to beat me up every day because she was my sister. And I was like, my sister? So I run home, ask my mom. My mom said that's not true. So let's move forward years to years to years. Family members did not tell me this secret, but everybody else knew the secret. And I resented my parents for that, but yet my parents did the best they could with what they knew.
Right. So it was your sister?
Yes, I have a sister.
Okay.
Okay. So I made a decision that I wanted to cultivate a relationship with my sister because I felt that that was something that my parents took from me. Mm-hmm. That I could have, for some reason or another, they made a decision not to share that, and God bless them, they're both deceased. And from this day on, they never admitted it. But I know within my heart that that's the truth. So that was something that stuck with me, and it bothered me, and it really made me stuck on some things because I was angry with the parents. Mm-hmm. So I take people through that because they're backstories that will hinder you. You could have a parent that's critical. So therefore, as you get older, you don't take criticism too well because you're angry because they criticize you. So that's why I take them back into their backstory so they can get an understanding of why they are like they are, and then come to grips with it and move forward, because that'll keep you stuck.
Absolutely. So, do you find that people are like fixated on their life's purpose, but kind of stuck in getting there? Or do you find that people don't really even have a life's purpose? They don't have that why.
I love those questions. I love that question. I don't think there's not a person who does not think about, why am I here? Why am I here? And everybody has a gift, and everybody is here for a reason. And once you determine what that is, you will have more meaning in your life. You will be driven to get up in the morning, and there's no small purpose versus no big purpose. What you're doing now could be your purpose. Some people are caregivers for their parents, and they're upset about that. That could be their purpose at that time. Depending on what's going on in your life, could be your purpose, because that can be work towards to give you something bigger and better. Right. Like like a lot of people, want to be millionaires, millionaires to me is not there are a lot of millionaires. I mean, right. There are a lot of those, but you want to understand why do you want to do that? What are you going to do with what you get? It's more blessed to give than receive.
Right.
So I have all of that kind of stuff in the book, and that's why I said self-discovery. Because you're stuck for a reason, because a lot of people stuck so much because they don't know what their purpose is.
Mm-hmm.
They stick on that, like, I know it's something, I don't know what it is. Why don't you be in the moment?
Yeah,
Stay.
I think that's tough for people because most people are competitive and they're comparing, what they think someone else is doing or has done that's so meaningful. And so they diminish whatever it is that they're doing or should have done or did or want to do, they diminish it. And so they're constantly unhappy and doubting their purpose. Your purpose could be to be in the church choir.
That's right.
So I agree with you on that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
So last question that I have for you. If you had a do-over, so you aren't 55, you're 35, but you knew what you know now, what would you do different at 35?
I would not waste so much time dealing with individuals that do not have my best interest at heart. I would not I just would appreciate more, be more inquisitive about people that I meet. And I say that because there are a lot of people now that are transitioning, the young and the old. And there's so much about them that you don't know because you're so fixated on yourself.
Right.
You're so busy comparing yourself to this person and that person. But there are gifts in everybody. So I would probably take more time to get to know them instead of it being all about me.
Okay. So that's your personal answer. What's your corporate answer?
My corporate answer is do not underestimate the power of relationships.
Politicking.
You want to have a coach. You want to have a mentor. You want to have a confidant. You want to, you want to just have certain people in the corporate environment that has your best interest, be your ally.
Okay.
And
now, as a first, great answer. And obviously you can tell I'm excited about the answer because I'm not letting you finish. I apologize per se. But so given what you just said, and given the fact that most of us are first, how do you identify, how does a first, second, third, fourth, fifth, for that matter, how do you identify the people that have your best interest at heart? How do you identify that coach? Because there's a difference between a coach, a confidant, and a mentor. Now they could all be the same person, but you might have a coach and a different confidant. So how do you identify those people in the corporate universe? Because even like with your boss, which is not the reason why, but the reason why I asked that question earlier was because I had a sneaky suspicion it was for your boss's best interest, not necessarily your best interest. When we were talking about the apartment, securing the apartment, he wanted you to be good and happy, and he didn't want you to be frustrated and have an upset personal life, feeling insecure and unsafe. So I thought that was his self-interest. Understanding that was his self-interest, that's not a confidant to me. Might be a coach, but not a confidant. Right. So anyway, I'm going to let you answer that question.
Right. Well, I say this a lot and people kind of get bothered, but I have this spirit of discernment.
Okay.
And and that's why I said one thing I would do in the corporate America is also to build relationships. And I have been what I would call a pretty personable, transparent person.
Okay.
And trying to get to know them. For example, I even want to find out about their families, their husbands, their children, what's going on with them. Everybody likes to hear their names.
Absolutely.
Also, I I pray about it. And there have been people that I thought could have been a coach for me, but they didn't have my best interest. It's kind of like it backfired.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have been in relationship with people where I have learned what to say, when to say, how to say it. So I study people.
Okay.
I observe people, see what's going on, look and see what their values are. So I just, you can tell for me whether somebody likes you.
Right.
I mean, in spite of me being the first Black, I have had white people, Jewish people, Asian people that had my best interests. And what I mean by that, they will say, look, let me talk to you about a 401k.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you should do. Now, the company's going to match you, so you need to put in what they're going to match. So they gave me advice.
Okay.
That if there was not for the advice that many of them would have given me, I would not have been able to retire at the age of 55.
Excellent. I got that. So
Okay.
let me recap what I thought you heard you say. And this is the reason why men, should always reiterate, because we don't always listen too good. So I heard you say that you have to, and it's kind of repetitive from earlier, but you have to have a relationship with God. You have to do your homework. Mm-hmm. So, we have, as a people, have studied people because we had to figure out how to fit in appropriately as best we could. But you're saying above and beyond that, you need to do further homework to see how you can specifically communicate, network, and be coached by certain people. So you have to go do a little bit more homework, which is actually a lot easier today than it was, 15, 20 years ago, because you can go on Facebook and see, who somebody's kids are and what kind of parties they go to and what kind of restaurants they like and all those type of fun things. So I heard you say you have to do your homework. And so in all of those things, I didn't mention the number one thing that you mentioned, which is you have the gift of discernment. And so for those of you that may not necessarily have the gift of discernment, you got the gift of paying close attention. Pay attention to the details, and you will develop more discernment, and you'll be better suited and fit to, and don't take for granted your common sense, because common sense isn't common. I was in a situation where I asked a senior person. He wasn't a mentor, confidant, or anything else. He just happened to be one of the people that came in super early to the office. I used to come in really early. So if everybody came in at 9, we were there at 6:30, 7 o'clock. And there was only 2 or 3 people in the entire building of 100 and something people. So I asked this guy one day, and he was the number one producer in the firm. I asked him if he was my age, which I was 20 years younger than him, what would he do differently? And he specialized in one thing and was the highest producer in the company. And his advice to me was, if I were you and I was starting over, I would be I would be good at a lot of things. So, I could do a lot of different services versus this one service. So he was basically saying if he had to do it over, he'd be a generalist. And I said, okay, but you're a specialist and you do better than everybody in the building by far. So I took that advice and I tossed it out the window. I smiled. I said, thank you. And I never asked him another question.
Right.
So you have to be able to use your common sense as well.
That's true.
But I want everyone to go out and check out your book is Your Way, in Your Way. And the goal is to get out of your way so that amazing things can happen and you can live your 24K life. So with that, I want to thank you so much, Cassandra, for coming on. For those of you that are just listening as you're driving, it's Cassandra Crawley, CRAWLEY.com, CassandraCrawley.com. Go check her out. Get the book, get the accompanying book. Get her as a mentor if you're in that transition period and she can help you, or you feel in your discerning spirit that she can help you, go do that. Cassandra, thank you so much.
Thank you, Derick. Thanks for having me. This is great.
I enjoyed it. All right, you heard it. Listen, we are bringing you people that can guide you and help you along the way, make your life a little better. Now, if you listen carefully, she gave you several keys and tools that you can use, that you can begin to implement today. Start a list today. Who's an advocate? Who's a confidant? Who's a potential mentor? Who's a potential coach? Who should you just watch from afar? And are you doing your homework? And are you delivering your best? Along the way, she continued to deliver 24K excellence to even be the one to get the call, to get the promotion, to get in the big boardrooms. So I'm Derick Gant. Please like, share, and subscribe to 24K Life. We hope that you have an amazing week, and we talk to you real soon.